Boker Tov is Kesubos Daf Zayin, Kesubos 16, and we're going to start the new chapter, which is called Ha'isha She Nis Armala, a woman who became a widow, and this is the second chapter of Masachas Kesubos on the bottom of 15 and the bottom of 15b. So let's say there was a woman who became a widow, or Ocean Iskarsha, she became a divorcee. So meaning her marriage is ended and she's entitled to her ksuba. But Rashi says this situation is the ksuba is lost, and so she can't produce the ksuba. She's still going to get money because the ksuba is a tenai bezdin. It's a stipulation in the court, so she gets it. But now, Hiomeris, she says the ksuba reflects the fact that when I get married, bisuan is asani, I was a virgin, and so therefore I'm entitled to a ksuba of 200 zuz. Omer, and the husband claims, "Hello, you were not." The ksuba reflected the fact that you were non-virgin, and so therefore you're only entitled to 100. So if the woman could produce witnesses, and when she went to the wedding, she was wearing a hinuma, which is like the head garb of a basula, of a virgin, which like a dasim around her head. Virosha Perua, and that her head was uncovered, also like a virgin. Ksuva Samatayim. Then her ksuva is 200. So she needs to produce the witnesses, and then her ksuva is 200. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan Broka Amar, Avchil Kalayos Raya. Rabbi Yochanan Broka says, not only do we say something about her own self, her body, that she was wearing the garb of a bisula, but even if somebody else at the wedding was handing out parched grain, which is external to the bride, meaning because somebody else was doing it. It was a custom at the weddings of a virgin to hand out parched grain. That would be sufficient according to Rabbi Yochanan Braka. And now, Mode Rabbi Yeshua admits, even though we've been discussing up until now, excuse me, we've been discussing in the first chapter 4 disputes between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, where Rabbi Gamliel says, we always believe the woman's status quo prior to the wedding, and we believe her, Namenis, for different reasons, but she says we believe her. Rabbi Gamliel says we believe her. Excuse me. Rabbi Gamliel says we believe her. Rabbi Yeshua says in general we don't believe her. We don't believe her, Migu, that she could. We believe her because she could have said a better lie, or a better claim. Rabbi Yeshua says we don't believe her. But in this case, Rabbi Yeshua himself would admit that there is one case where we would believe a person's presumptive status on the basis of Migu, on the basis that if they wanted to, they could have said a better claim. What's the case? But Omer al-Chavero, a person says to his friend, so a person says to his friend, this field actually was your father's. Rashi says it's where the person just goes over to another person. The one person did not initiate a claim against the other person, just the other person. It says this field was your father's, but I bought it from him. So Shehu Neman, that even there, Rabbi Yeshua would say in that case that he's believed. Why? Why do we believe him that he says he bought the field? We're on top of Kesubos 16a. Because the same person, it literally means the mouth that prohibited is the mouth that permitted. But what it means is the same person who gave you the evidence that this was not his field. He says, I bought this field. So therefore, the whole testimony is based upon him. Therefore, we believe him. But if there are witnesses that it was actually the other person's father's field, and he says, yeah, I bought it from him, then then he's not the Pesha Asar anymore. So therefore, he's not going to be believed because there are witnesses that say it says it belongs to somebody else's field. So it says the Gemara, then what's the reason why we say in this case that if there are witnesses, we believe her to her headgear garb, for example, that we believe that she's a virgin only because there are witnesses. That's why the woman is believed that she's a virgin. But if there be no witnesses, we would say very clearly, Baal Mehemen, the husband is believed. So So therefore, for this reason, Lema Tanan, Stama, the Loka Rabbi Gamliel. So let us say that for this reason, our anonymous Mishnah is not like Rabbi Gamliel, because Rabbi Gamliel says we believe her whether or not there are no witnesses. The Rabbi Gamliel, Amar Ihi Mehemna. He says she's believed, we assume her presumptive status even without the witnesses. So the Gemara says, Afilu Tamer Rabbi Gamliel. No, we could say our Mishnah is even Rabbi Gamliel. In this case, Rabbi Gamliel, we might have thought didn't believe her. Why? I can't come Rabbi Gamliel Hasam El Abari V'Shema. Why does Rabbi Gamliel believe her in the first chapter? Because it's those that's referring to cases where she was certain and the husband couldn't be certain. He was Shema. He was uncertain. Like for example, she says, I was betrothed, I was assaulted after I was betrothed, and he says, he says, no, it was before you were betrothed. So he can't be certain. So he was a Shema. Or she says, I was Mukas AIDS, my Basula was injured by wood, and he says, no, you were assaulted by a man. He was a Shema. But in this case, they're both certain. He says, I remember you were a non-virgin, and she says, no, I was a virgin. So the Gemara said, so therefore, maybe Rabbi Gamliel wouldn't believe her in this case. So the Gemara says, oh, so that's why even in this case, Rabbi Gamliel would say that only if she has witnesses. Gemara says, it's such a good question. The one who asked the question, what was he even thinking? I mean, it's such a good response to the question that this Mishnah is not obviously not like Rabbi Gamliel. What were you thinking? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you what I was thinking. So I might have the Gemara says the one who asked the question that says that it said that it doesn't prove that our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Gamliel. What was he even thinking? This is a case of two certain claims against each other. Where it says no, keeping the rov nashim besulos nisos, because since most women when they get married are virgins, and so therefore she was certainly a virgin. Kibari v'shemadam. It's like a case of certainty versus uncertainty, and therefore we might have thought that for that reason she wouldn't need the witnesses, and so therefore we assume that since she needs witnesses, not like Rabbi Gamliel. And so therefore in the end we don't say that. In the end we say that the first clause therefore in the end we don't say that. In the first clause, even Rabbi Gamliel is admitting to Rabbi Yeshua that she needs the witnesses. And this indeed is the logical way to read our Mishnah, from the fact that it says in the second clause of the Mishnah, the Rabbi Yeshua himself admits to the position of Rabbi Gamliel, where it's the Pasha As or Pasha Heter, where one person volunteers all the information and then quickly qualifies it. So now, but the Mishnah uses the words "Umoda Rabbi Yeshua." Now, that if you want to say in the first case of the Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel himself is admitting to Rabbi Yeshua's position that we don't believe the woman unless she has witnesses, then Shapir, then it makes sense to say why we're using the word Modeh. Then it makes sense to say why we're using the word Modeh, because it's basically working in parallel with the first clause of the Mishnah. That's why Rabbi Yeshua is admitting in the second case. Rabbi Gamliel admits in the first case. Rabbi Yeshua admits in the second case. Eliyamar, so I Rabbi Gamliel b'modeh, Rabbi Yeshua man modeh. But if you're not going to say that the first case refers to Rabbi Yeshua, to Rabbi Gamliel admitting it, that the first case is just straight out Rabbi Yeshua, well, if that's the case, then why does it say Rabbi Yeshua man modeh? So why would it use this language of Modeh Rabbi Yeshua in the second case? It's obviously the first case Rabbi Gamliel is admitting to Rabbi Yeshua. So that's why we have to read it. So the Gemara says, no, it's not necessarily the case. Misa Rabbi Yeshua Hai Perkin. Why you don't have to assume that when Rabbi Yeshua says Modeh, it's referring to the first case of our Mishnah. Maybe Amigu Kai Vapirkan Kama Kai. Maybe Rabbi Yeshua is saying he's referring back to the first chapter where we had 4 cases in the first chapter where Rabbi Gamliel argued with Rabbi Yeshua. Maybe it's those cases. Rabbi Yeshua is saying, I don't agree with you in those cases, Rabbi Gamliel, but in this case, I do agree with you. So the Gemara says, well, what are those cases? Which one of those 4 cases was actually a case of Amigu, which Rabbi Yeshua is now saying, I don't agree with you there, but I agree with you here. And the Mishnah, the Gemara is not going to go in order because it's going to start eliminating some of the more obvious ones as that they are not migus, and then it's going to come in the end to the one that's obviously a migu, but the Gemara pedagogically wants to get us there slowly. So the Gemara says, if you want to say it's the following case, which we had on 13a at the top, let's say let's say the woman was pregnant. And they said to her, tell us about this child. What's the nature of this child? And she says, Mishponi v'koinu. She says, look, it comes from such and such a person, and this child is capable of marrying a Kohen. Rabbi Gamliel, and he's kosher for kahuna. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer, Amram Ne'emanis. They say, we believe her, Rabbi Yeshua, Omer, Lo Mipianu Chayim. Rabbi Yeshua says, we don't believe her. Is that the case of the migu? Asks the Gemara. Can't be. Hasam migu. Why would you say that that's the case of the migu that Rabbi Yeshua says I don't agree with? Hare kreisa ben shineh. What would be her migu? She's pregnant. She can't. She didn't. She couldn't say, oh well, I didn't have to tell you I was pregnant. She's pregnant. So maybe it's the second case. Let's say you saw her speaking with a person. What tell us about this person you were speaking with? And she says, Ishploni v'koinu, he's not going to disqualify me, he's kosher guy. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer, Omrim Ne'emanis. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer say, in fact, we believe her. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer say, we believe her because, we'll see why in a moment. They say we believe her. Rabbi Yeshua says, only Pio Anuchayim. They said we don't rely upon her. So Gemara asked the question, obviously, my migu, what would be the migu there? What do you mean that she says that he's kosher? What could she have said? Hanicho is the Iri. It makes sense according to the Iri. Remember, we saw there was a dispute there between the Iri and Ravasi. When it says medaberes, when it says speaking, what's it referring to? Is it referring to seclusion? Is it referring to intercourse? So it makes sense according to the Iri, where it says that what does medaberes mean? We saw her speaking. It says nistra. It means we saw her secluded. So when she says, I was with a guy who is kosher, that is a migu that Rabbi Yeshua rejects because migu dibai amrlo nevalti. She could have just said I was secluded and I didn't have any intercourse, but it says v'ka amr nevalti. Instead, she says I had the intercourse with the person who doesn't disqualify me, and so therefore mehemna. Therefore, Rabbi Gamliel believes her. And so Rabbi Yeshua says I don't accept your migu and I don't believe her. According to Rav Asi, who says what does it mean when she says she's speaking niv eles? It means we saw her having the intercourse. Then my migu, we know she had intercourse. So what could she have claimed if she didn't claim she was a kosher guy? She had no claim. So there's no migu there. So we go to the third case. What about this third case? The top of the page. Remember that mission on the top of the page? So what's the case? He omeres, she says, mukas eitzani. She says, listen, I was mukas eitz. I was struck by the wood. My basula was ruined by natural means. She says, no, you were with a man, and that's why you don't have the basula anymore. So Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer, Omrim Ne'emanis, they say we believe her. Why? Because Rabbi Yeshua says, no, we don't believe her. What would be the migu there? I remember we had the whole dispute between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan about what was the claim that she was asking for. That Rabbi Elazar says she was claiming, as we're going to see now in the Gemara, that she claimed 100, and he says, I don't want to give you anything. And so for this reason, Rabbi Gamliel believes her when she says she was mukas eitz, because why? She said, I was mukas eitz when you betrothed me. But if she really wanted to, she could have said, I became a mukas eitz after I was betrothed to you. And then my claim would be 200, and I would get 200. But what was her claim? Her claim was in the end, meikara, her claim from the outset was that she only wanted, she said, I was mukas eitz when you betrothed to me, and so therefore I get 100. So therefore, she has a migu. She could have asked for 200, but so therefore, Rabbi Gamliel believes her. Rabbi Yochanan says that her claim is she wants to get 200, and he says, I'm only giving you 100. So she's already making the most expansive claim. My migu ika. What's her migu there? So meaning to say she's already asking for 200. So she doesn't have anything else she could have asked, a better claim. So it refers back to the case on Yudalaf Amabeis. That what's the case there? Or Yubez Amabeis. What's the case there? I know says Isha that a man marries a woman who Basulim discovers she's not a virgin. He Omeres, she says, Mishera Stani Nanasti. She says, actually, what happened was I was assaulted after I was betrothed, meaning to say, yes, I was assaulted. It was after I was betrothed. And your field is destroyed, meaning your bad luck. And so therefore you still have to, I was still a virgin at the time of the marriage. Give me a 200 zuz ksuba. He says, no, you lost your virginity before the marriage. So Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer, that meant we believe her. Why? Because she could have said if she wanted a better claim, she could have said it was mukas eitz after we were engaged. And then she would not be disqualified to a Kohen, which Rabbi Yeshua says only pia anuchayin. Rabbi Yeshua says we don't trust her. What's the migu there? She could have said, I became a mukas eitz, so I was betrothed to you. She would not have been disqualified to the kahuna. Instead, she gives the weaker claim that where she just says, I was assaulted, the kapasa nasha kahuna. And thereby she's disqualified from the kahuna. Rabbi Gamliel believes her because of this migu. And so Rabbi Yeshua comes along in our chapter. He says, in this migu that we were talking about, Pasha As or Pasha Heter, which she's the one who completely introduces the information. There, Rabbi Yeshua says, I agree with you, Rabbi Gamliel. But on the migu over there, I'm going to argue with you. So the Gemara says, well, why? They're both migus. So what's the difference? Why in the case of the first chapter on Yud Beis and Beis does Rabbi Yeshua not agree with her, but in the case over here, does Rabbi Yeshua agree with her? So the Gemara says, So the Gemara says, Hacha in our case over here in the second chapter, ain't sure shachat lefanecha. There's no ox that's slaughtered before you, meaning to say, there's no evidence of anything whatsoever. Ain't sure shachat lefanecha. There's no ox slaughtered before you, and so therefore, there's no reason why the guy didn't even need to say anything in the first place. But in the first chapter, already sure shachat lefanecha. The ox is slaughtered before you, means to say she's not a virgin. And he discovers on the wedding night she's not a virgin. So there was something out there that she needed to address. So the Gemara said, and since furthermore, so the Gemara says, "V'kiven the rob nashim besuos nisos." So then the Gemara asks, well, since the majority of the women, so the Gemara asks the question now, since the majority of the women who get married are virgins. Why do we care if there are no witnesses? Why can't we just follow the majority and assume she's a virgin? So the Gemara says, well, the problem with that is, because we could say majority of the women, because we could say majority of the women get married as virgins, and just a minority of them are widows. The Kohanis Besua, and whoever gets married as a virgin, Yesh Lakol, there is, everybody knows about it. Everybody will know she went out with the bridal dress. Vizu on top of 16b, and this one, Holio, the Ein Lakol, since nobody remembers that she went out with the bridal, the virginal garb, Israel Ruba, she's lost her majority. And so therefore, for this reason, we require the witnesses. So the Gemara says, well, if everybody who gets married as a virgin, a lot of people know about it. Why do we care that the witnesses come? These are false witnesses. So why should we believe them? So the Gemara says, yeah. The majority of the women who get married, they have a lot of people know about it. And this woman, not all the women who get married as a virgin do people know, but majority of the cases. And this woman, but this woman, Vizu, Kol, Israel Ruba, she lost her majority. It's not that she didn't have it, she just lost that majority principle. So therefore, she needs the witnesses. So the Mishnah had said, if there are witnesses that she went out with the bridal garb, we believe the witnesses. So Gemara says, but why don't we have to be concerned about something? Maybe because she'll produce the witnesses, she'll get her ksuva in court A, which is in Jerusalem, and then let's say and then she'll go to Babylon, she'll go to another bezin, and she'll get her ksuba from bezin number 2, because she'll produce the ksuba, and then she'll get money in the second court. So Amar Rabbi Avo, so Rabbi Avo says so maris, because basically we're concerned about her fraud. So Rabbi Avo says this teaches us that we have to write her a receipt, Kotzvin Shover. And this is not like Rashi says this is a dispute in Baba Basra. Do we require a person who collects the money without a contract to write a receipt for the person who lent the money? The person who lent the money doesn't want to have to be responsible to guard the receipt. It costs money. You have to go to the bank, safe deposit box, you have to protect it against theft or loss. He doesn't want to have to be responsible. So do we require the person who borrowed the money, who paid it back, to write a receipt for the lender? So from here we see that you'd have to write a receipt for the person who's giving you the ksuba in the case where there's no actual contract, where there's no document. So that's what Rabbi Avo says. So Samaris quotes from Shofar. Rabbi Papa says no, that's not the case. You don't write a shofar because we can't force the guy to have to watch the receipt, because then it's his job to protect it from the mice. And so we'll look at Rashi. Rav Papa says, he says, no, we're talking about a place where they don't actually write a ksuba. What does this mean? Look at Rashi. You don't write a receipt for the person. You don't write a receipt for the husband, because the nimtza he'd have to then guard his contract from the mice. Somebody. So what's the scenario? If a person has a contract on his friend and he says, you owe me money, you have the ashtar, either he has to bring the contract and return the note to the borrower, or he doesn't get anything. He either had a contract or he did get nothing. But our mission is talking about a place, but our mission is talking about a place where they don't actually write out the ksuba. And they just rely upon the fact that everybody who gets divorced gets a ktuva, mana, and that she gets 200 or 100. We don't have to be concerned she's going to produce the ksuba. We don't have to be concerned that that's what's going to happen. So that's what Rav Papa said. There's no concern she's going to produce a ksuba because there is no ksuba. Some say this discussion of Rabbi Avo and Rav Papa didn't take place on our Mishnah, but it centered around a brisa. What was the brisa? The brisa says, Ibda ksuvasa, let's say she lost her ksuva, or hitmina ksuvasa, or she hit her ksuva, or nishafa ksuvasa, or her ksuva burnt, then rakdu lefanah, and then if she has witnesses that they danced in front of her like she was a virgin, or sachku lefanah, or they did like shtick in front of her, or avir lefanah, kol shel besura, or they brought in front of her the cup that they usually bring out just for the virgin. So under those circumstances, those are signs of virginity, or ma'apashal basulim, or the sheet of a virgin. If she has witnesses that she has signs of a virgin, then her ksuva is 200. And I asked the question, but why? And why don't we have to be concerned that maybe she'll have the witnesses in the court in Jerusalem, then she'll go to Babylon and she'll produce her ksuba and collect again? So Rabbi Avo says this proves that you write the receipt for her in those. You write the receipt for the husband. Rabbi Papa says, but makom she'ein kosvin ksuba askin. Rabbi Papa says, no, you don't write a ksuba. This is a place where there was no ksuba written, so she doesn't have to be concerned that he's producing. We don't have to be concerned she's going to produce the ksuba. Gemara says, but you can't say that. You can't say it's a place where there's no ksuba. It says specifically she lost her ksuba. And furthermore, so the Gemara explains, no, the cause of what ihu. Yeah, that she didn't, you didn't have to write a ksuba, but in this case, he specifically wrote a ksuba for her. So the Gemara says, sof, mafkala, v'gavyaba. So in the end, but still, it says that in the end that she, we still have to be concerned. Well, if that's the case, we have to be concerned that she's going to take it out and collect it. And so therefore, so if he writes a ksuva, we're back to the same question that while our Papa say there's no ksuva, we have to be concerned there that she can take it out and collect it. So the Gemara says, no, my ibda. So meaning to say, it says she lost her ksuba. So how is he going to don't we have to be concerned that he's going to take it out and collect it? So the Gemara says, no, when the Brisa says she lost the ksuba, what does it mean? My ibda ba'or, that she burnt the ksuba. And so therefore, even though we're talking about a case where he wrote the ksuba on his own, but Papa is saying that we don't have to be concerned for the ksuba because everybody knows that the ksuba was burnt. The Gemara says, well, it can't be that ibda means burnt. No, that's the case of saying it. It says specifically in the source that it was burnt. Road hitmina, and furthermore, it says that if the woman hid the ksuba, what would you say there? There's the concern that she's going to take out the ksuba a second time. So why does Rav Papa say we're not concerned about it? Visu, and furthermore, if we're going to say that nisrafa means it was lost, ibdalamali, why does it say it was lost? If that's the case of burnt, why does it say ibda at all? Ella kol ibda ki hitma b'fanenu dami. So rather, what we're saying is, wherever she claims the ksuba was lost, it's like she hid it in front of us. It's saying the opposite of what we thought it said initially. It's saying that she hid it in front of us, and we're not going to allow her to collect the ksuba, to collect anything without the contract. Unless she has witnesses that say that the ksuba was actually burnt. And so therefore, the intent of the Braita is to say that if she actually lost her ksuba, then we don't trust her. And so then we're not going to give it to her. But if there are witnesses that say it was burnt, then or she brings the source of the ksuba, the witnesses that she was a virgin, and they say the witnesses who say the ksuba was burnt, then we're going to pay her. Otherwise, we're not going to pay her because we're concerned she's going to produce it in another area. Meaning to say, Rav Papa is saying we wouldn't give it to her under those circumstances. So Man the Masnila Brisa, the one who says in the Brisa this dispute between Rabbi Avo and Rav Papa, and that Rav Papa is saying that when it says she lost it, it's like she hid it, and therefore we're not going to give it to her unless she has witnesses who say it was burnt. Kol Shekain. For sure, they're going to have this dispute between Rabbi Avo and Rav Papa on the Mishnah, and they're saying that it's in a place where you don't write a ksuba because there's no other way to learn the Mishnah. But the one who learns this dispute on the Mishnah, they can't apply to the Brisa. Brisa lo, because the Brisa implies. Because from the Brisa implies that you write the receipt, you're not going to say that from the Brisa, from Rabbi Avo proves you write the receipt because Kikusha, because of these questions on Rav Papa. Ibda Ksubasa, which implies that you write the Ksuba. And that's and it's a difficult answer that we're saying that it's like that if you lost the Ksuba, it's like she hid it in front of us and we don't believe it. So fine. So now the Mishnah said if there are witnesses that she went out with the Hinuma, then we give her the money. So the Gemara says, "V'leicha shtoma mafki ede nume b'hai bezin v'gavya v'hadar mafki ede nume b'beitin achrin v'gavda." So why don't we have to be concerned? She produce witnesses in Jerusalem and then go to Babylon, produce the same witnesses, and then she'll be able to collect in both places. She'll go around with these two witnesses and keep collecting her ksuba. So the Gemara says, "Okay." If you have no choice, you have to write a receipt that you paid the money. But if they have evidence that they brought in front of her a kos shabasura, which is a cup that proves she's a virgin. What is this kos shabasura? Amar Vada Barava, Kos Yayin Shal Truma, Ma'avirin Lefanea. They would bring a cup of wine of Truma. Truma was specifically given to the Kohen, but they would pass it in front of her. They were saying that this woman was worthy of marrying a Kohen. She has such good lineage because she's a virgin, and therefore she could have, if she had married a Kohen, she could have eaten from the Truma. So that's why they bring it in front of her to prove she could have eaten from the Truma. So this proves she was a virgin. So yeah, but even if she was a non-virgin, she could eat from the truma. She could have married a Kohen. If she was a widow, she just could have married the Kohen Gadol. So why did that doesn't prove that she was a virgin? It just proves she didn't have relations with somebody who was prohibited to her, like a non-Jew. So the Gemara says, "El Amar Papa, Zo Reishis Ketruma Reishis." No, we're saying symbolically, she is the first, meaning to say this is a virgin. Like the truma is also called reishis, the first of your crops you give to the Kohen. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Abayas, Rabbi Yehuda, Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Chava Shal Yayim Aviron Fanel. Rabbi Yehuda says we pass a barrel of wine in front of her. And Amar Avada Bar Ava, Besuan Maviron Fanel. That if she was a virgin, we would pass in front of her a closed barrel, indicating that she was still a virgin. But if she was a non-virgin, we pass in front of her an open barrel. Amai asked the Gemara, why do you have to pass an open barrel in front of her if she isn't a non-virgin? Why don't we just say we'll pass a closed barrel in front of a virgin, and in front of a non-virgin, we won't pass anything at all? The Gemara says, no, I'll tell you why. Zimnin did tafsa, and then we would know if you didn't pass a barrel in front of her, it's like you didn't pass the wine of the truma, and you'll say that she's a non-virgin. The Gemara says, because Zimnin did tafsa masayim, because sometimes this woman who's a non-virgin will just grab the money of the 200 zuz, and when we want to take the money away from her by claiming that you took it unfairly, Amra, she'll say, Ana Basua Havai, she'll say, I was a virgin, and the reason why you didn't pass it in front of me was this nuse this nisi, meaning to say, because he was drunk from the wedding, and so therefore it's no proof that I wasn't a virgin. And so therefore the rabbis instituted that either way, to make stronger evidence, you always pass the barrel in front of them. Either you passed a sealed barrel if she was a virgin, or an unsealed barrel if she was a virgin. And then the rabbis asked the question. We'll just end with this, and we'll do the daf again at noon today. How do you dance before the bride? What words of praise do you say before the bride? Beishamai says, Kala kamoshehi. You just basically, you don't praise her too much, but rather you just say, be honest and accurate according to what she looks like. And Tosfos says, if she has a blemish, don't say anything. Don't say anything. If she has a blemish, say nothing, and don't praise her. Or Tosfos says, just find something nice to comment on her. Like you say she has nice eyes or nice hands, but you don't say she's beautiful. Whereas Basil says, Basil says, regardless, every bride is beautiful. She has this string of kindness. She has a string of kindness coming down from heaven on top of her. So that's what Beis Shammai says to Basil. That Basil says every bride is kawana v'chasuda, and Beis Shammai says no. You have to be accurate. So the Gemara says, "Amar Beis Shammai leBasil harei shaisach chigaras osuma omer mo kawana v'chasuda aTorah amar midvar sheker tirchak." So Beis Shammai says to Basil, you mean let's say she has these things that are physically don't look so beautiful, and you're going to still say she's beautiful, and the Torah says midvar sheker tircha. The Torah says don't tell a lie. So we'll leave it there, and God willing, pick this up. We'll review this at 8:00. We'll pick it up again at noon, and we'll discuss this question further.